Okay, here we go with part two. This is about posture, focusing on posture, how to assess it, how to treat it. Posture is really one of the first things you want to look at as the person comes into the clinic, or even if you're seeing them in a hospital or rehab scenario. What is going on with the posture? A lot of different things can be causing poor posture: injuries, neurological conditions, emotional conditions, uh, people's energy level. If you have a low energy or kind of feel worn down, beaten down, you can have poor posture, culturally posture. In more particular, we're looking at job demands can really kind of drive some people's posture. Sitting all day, for example. Kinesthetic awareness, as we've been saying, really drives posture as well. The good news is most posture problems are reversible. It takes a lot of work, constant reminding, something you have to kind of work on continuously. For some people to kind of get it click and then to stay there where you want it to stay. But they are reversible. I think we talked about this in class, but a quick way to see if they're reversible or not. Say you're working with some older folks, she's like, is this a fixed cathartic kind of thing, or can I work on this? Can you bring them back to neutral? Just passively try to bring them back, bring their shoulders back into neutral. And if you can, okay, this is something you can make a difference with. If you can't, then it's a fixed deal. That's kind of the way they're going to be to kind of work around that. Okay. So posture, it just drives all these problems, leads all these work-related injuries. Fatigue can really lead to posture. People are overworked, overstressed, and they start to look like this lady down here. Workstations like this guy, will spend a lot of time working on workstations, can cause poor posture. Leads to DMPs, poor kinesthetic awareness, and ultimately pain. Looking at posture more in particular, the forward head. He has the forward head classically right there, getting his scalenes and his levators and other muscles really straining them, causing neck pain potentially. The rounded shoulders, tightening up the front of his body, his pecs, impacting the space and flow with the shoulder range of motion that we talked about. Pectoralis minors tightened, it can lead to all kinds of pain issues that we talked about. Excessive posterior tilt, the flat back right there, lead to lack of a curve. Excessive posterior tilt can lead to lumbar disc, spinal extensors being compromised. This is a question a lot of people, for some reason, seem to miss on the quizzes and the exams. Excessive posterior tilt, this guy right here, can lead to damage of your lumbar disc and straining the spinal extensors. Pelvis. Pelvis can be confusing. I know this is her pelvis. His and her pelvis right here can be tilted forward or tilted backwards. What do you think this one is? Just looking at it. Is it anterior or posterior tilt? You should be saying that it's up anterior tilt. So this little kind of inverted C right there. The pelvis is coming this way. It's anterior tilt. If it was going this way, like a flat back, it'd be a posterior tilt. So as we'll bring it forward, give you that slight interior tilt and kind of that extension. Neutral with a slight tilt is where we want it. If it's too far forward, too far back, it causes problems. DMPs, pain. More examples of that: the anterior tilt, posterior tilt, sway back, and all that other stuff. We're not going to worry so much about. Just think about the posterior or anterior tilt, flat back or coming forward. Okay, so we start to think about these. This thing's kind of a pain in the butt. Start to think about these different muscles relate to the tilt. If their rectus abdominis is overactive, this guy has an overactive rectus ab. He's got this super six-pack here, tight as a washboard. What is it doing? It's pushing his pelvis back into a posterior tilt, pushing it back that way. Flat, it's causing a flat back, disc damage. Overall engagement of the extensors, the hip extensors. So overly active rectus abdominis leads to flat back, leads to back pain. lot of guys are dealing with this. Not necessarily an active rectus abs, but in some cases it is. It's too much here. It needs to come forward a little bit. If someone has a flat back, they need to relax the rectus abdominals, engage the hip flexors, and bring it more anterior, get more of an anterior tilt. Another thing you see a lot, this is not a good picture for it. It shows the anatomy, but it's not a good picture of a collapsed back. Kind of their terrible posture. The trunk is very short. Want to get that curve back. Want to get more extension back in their trunk. You want to engage the rectus, the obliques, and the transverse and oblique abdominals. Where are they? Where's the obliques? Right in here. These are kind of on the side. These are great muscles to engage to extend the trunk. We can extend the trunk. It will help a lot of these posture issues. So if you want to get trunk extension, a great exercise, which you'll do week 3, part 3. We're not going to do it. We might do it in the lab. Is that Spider-Man one? That one's, just have to do it and see it to know what I'm talking about. But it's a great exercise to facilitate more awareness, more extension of the trunk. It's going to collapse on it. And this kind of pulls it all together, anterior, posterior tilt. Which muscles are overused? Where do you see it in most jobs? And what can you do about it? What exercises address it? You need to know all of this, really, for the midterm. You do want to recognize it. I'm going to give you a picture. Recognizes it as anterior tilt or posterior tilt. What can you do to their job to kind of help with this? And which exercises, which muscles can we engage to correct that posture? Start with the posterior, flat back. See a lot of jobs like excessive standing, common with men. Washboard abs, overly engaged rectus abs. Those jelly belly muscles are working too hard. To get the hip extensions more engaged to bring that pelvis forward. Hip flexors, iliacus, and psoas will bring it forward. The ones you've just been doing, the 1 through 4, the explorations 1 through 4, are very good for bringing that tilt back. Engaging all those hip flexors, the ones where you're trying to cue your hip flexors to work. It's all about this, fighting that flat back, which a lot of men are dealing with. Too far the other way. It's going anteriorly, big sagging stomach. Some guys with a big stomach. A lot of females have the anterior tilt. It can be excessive. It can cause problems. We just want a slight tilt. We don't want an excessive tilt. A lot of sitting. You might see this a lot of sitting. Their abs are not working enough. They're kind of jelly belly, not engaged enough. Overused hip flexors. See, the hips are being pulled forward by these tight hip flexors. This is very common in people that sit all day in their job. Their hip flexors are tight and their abs are not working. So we need to get the hip extensors and the rectus abs. The ones that are overworking here, we need to get those going here to get it back into neutral. A good exercise is if they get them on their back and they do leg lifts. You may have done this one, leg lifts, pushing in your belly as you lift your legs up. That engagement, we'll do that one in the lab. And let's say it's collapsed. It's not really collapsed with either of these. Let's say it's kind of shortened, but it's kind of all slouchy, disengaged. Think of the Spider-Man can extend the trunk, like we just talked about. And this is even more here, really, sorry for whipping this around, really brings it all together. Start up here, the forward head. It's being overused. Scalenes, levator, upper traps are just on screech. They've been working overtime all day. Underused the abs. They're not extending the person up enough, bringing them back. Common jobs again, excessive sitting, working on a laptop, texting. Chin tuck is good for this. We talked about chin tuck already. The wall lineup, that's a simple one. We'll do that one. pelvic tilt, scapular retraction, just bringing those shoulder blades together. And then the neck carriage one is a good one for the exploration 5 that you'll be doing. Rounded shoulders, forward scapula. It's being overused, what's getting tight. The pec, especially the pec minor, which you know is a key anatomically because it's real tight up against the plexus and really affects space and flow issues with the whole upper extremity. Subscapularis, that internal rotator is tightened, overused. Teres major to a degree, and the upper traps being stretched. Underused. What's being underused? The rhomboids. What do the rhomboids do? They pull the scapula back. See how rhomboids are engaged, scapular retraction. Teres minor infraspinatus. What do? Externally rotate. Here she's internally rotated. Subscapular is doing too much. Here, externally rotated. Infraspinatus, teres minor are doing their thing, pulling the shoulders back where they should be. And the middle trapezius helping out with that scapular retraction. Again, sitting jobs, looking down. Scapular retraction, rows are really good. Doorway stretch, we'll do that one. And then those ones, the 1 through 4, exploration 1 through 4, again, are good for that. And then lastly, down here, the tilt. The tilt one way or the other, we're just going to went through that. I won't go over that again, but it's all there. Great exercises for all that. You need to do all this. Really need to know it really, really well, because you're going to get questions on this on the midterm. So you have to be able to kind of recall it. Oh, she's got a flat back, I do this. She's got an excessive tilt, I do this. She's got rounded shoulders, I do this. Forward head, I do this. You need to know it well. Okay, so that is the end of part 3. If I can figure out how to end this thing.